People called him a madman, while others described him as wild, unpredictable. Once a prodigy with the sword, now a recluse, shutting himself away from the world, refusing to leave his room. He was the eldest son of Count Perdium, branded as useless, a disgrace to his noble bloodline. And yet, this so-called failure achieved the unthinkable. He defeated the strongest knight in the northern region, a man known for his unmatched strength, pride, and victories, now on his knees, broken and humiliated. The knight's eyes burned with hatred. He couldn't accept it. How could someone like him, a man everyone called garbage, defeat him so easily? It was as if he had known everything before the battle even began. Every plan, every move, the exact number of troops, even those who betrayed their own side to help the reinforcements. From the very start, the knight had walked straight into the palm of his hand. He had always seen himself as the hidden ace, the one no one expected, the secret weapon that could turn the tide of war. But now, he was the one being played. The anger inside him exploded, but before he could act, Ghislain struck him with a swift, brutal kick to the face. The impact sent him crashing to the ground, blood running from his nose as Ghislain tells him to shut up. He removed his helmet and said to try to invade as many times as they liked. In the end, it wouldn't matter. He would win every single time without fail. With a smirk on his face, he confidently said that he had all the plans. A year ago, in the Lithuania kingdom, near the Perdium estate, Ghislain woke up, staring at his trembling hands. Shock filled his eyes as he reached for his throat, finding himself still alive. It made no sense. He remembered it clearly. He had died. The memory of that day began to unfold in his mind. He was locked in a fierce clash with a knight. His sword was torn from his grasp, leaving him defenseless. Blood splattered as Ghislain is struck deep across the chest. His body is already weakened, and he fell to his knees, gasping for breath. A towering figure stepped into view, a mocking smile curling across his lips. He taunted that this was all the famous Mercenary King had to offer. Perhaps he had expected too much, given that Ghislain was widely known across the continent as one of the strongest men. It was no surprise he had defeated Ghislain. After all, this man was one of the continent's top 7 noble knights. Aiden declared the war is over. Pointing his sword at Ghislain, he asked if there were any last words. Ghislain replied with none, only the bitter regret that he could not fulfill his revenge. His gaze locked onto Aiden, burning with unyielding hatred, carrying a single wish that Aiden would die here. Aiden sneered, his voice dripping with disdain as he called Ghislain arrogant. He remarked that he never would have guessed this broken man was the eldest son of the Perdium household. Aiden recalled how Ghislain had abandoned his family after the death of his sister. Ghislain's eyes narrowed, his voice cold as he demanded how Aiden could possibly know such a thing, given that he was from a different kingdom. A dark, twisted smile crept across Aiden's face. He revealed that they were the one who had joined forces with the Delphine household to orchestrate the downfall of his family. The words stunned Ghislain. For a moment, he stood frozen, the realization sinking in. There were others behind his family's downfall, not just the Duke Delphine household. Before he could process it fully, Aiden pressed his blade to Ghislain's neck. With a mocking tone, he said that there was no point in explaining further since he was going to die soon anyway, and he should simply accept his fate. Ghislain's rage exploded as he called Aiden a bastard, vowing never to forgive him. Aiden, unfazed, coldly replied that he didn't care. Without hesitation, he swung his sword in a single, ruthless motion, severing Ghislain's head from his body as a burst of blood filled the air. Back to the present, Ghislain is staring at his reflection. He remembered it all clearly. He'd been decapitated at that moment. Yet here he was, his head still on his shoulders. He wondered if it was just a hallucination as he now found himself in the body of his younger self. He thought that maybe he had been captured and turned into a lab rat by the mages. Those arrogant bastards would regret sparing his life. Just then, a voice called out, "Young master." Ghislain turned to see one of the Perdium soldiers, Ricardo, standing at the doorway. Ricardo said he knows Ghislain was awake and that he needed to come out. In the blink of an eye, the tip of Ghislain's blade hovered at Ricardo's throat. He ordered him to be quiet, saying he will let him live if he answers his questions, or maybe not. Ghislain's gaze was razor-sharp, leaving no doubt about the seriousness of his threat. Ricardo, utterly baffled, demanded to know what was going on, insisting this was crossing a line and that no means no. Ghislain is confused, uncertain why Ricardo would react this way when he was clearly being threatened. Ricardo pushed him away, saying he had tired himself out during his earlier tantrum and had fallen asleep. Ricardo asked if Ghislain forgot what happened after his nap. He explained that Ghislain had thrown a tantrum about wanting to lead the group to raid the orcs. Still puzzled, Ghislain asked what nonsense Ricardo was talking about. Ricardo told him to pull himself together because people were waiting on them. Ghislain asked where they were going. Ricardo casually replied, "Of course, to the Perdium estate." Surprised by the answer, Ghislain grabbed Ricardo's shoulder and urged him to say it again. Holding him tightly, Ghislain asked, "Do you mean the fallen Perdium estate?" The scene shifts to Ghislain, standing on a hill as he stares at the Perdium estate. He mutters in disbelief, "It's really my house," and wonders how it's still standing, vividly recalling the day he saw it reduced to ashes. Noticing Ghislain's reaction, Ricardo asks if he had a nightmare or something. He adds that calling his own estate fallen is going too far and warns that the Count would kick him out if he heard such talk. Ghislain pinches himself to see if he's dreaming. The sharp sting of pain quickly confirms he's not. Observing his younger face and the estate in its original form, a chilling thought crossed his mind. He might have either traveled back in time or ended up in an alternate timeline. In his younger years, he resented the household. His immaturity was born from feeling inferior that led to constant trouble. Over time, the people of the estate avoided him. Unable to endure their criticism, he chose to run away. Years passed. He became a mercenary, surviving countless battles, honing his skills, and earning a name for himself. When he finally returned to Perdium County to atone for his mistakes, all he found were the ashes and ruins of his family's estate. In that moment, Ghislain had lost everything. But now, everything he had once lost was here. The people he cherished were still alive. He felt deeply grateful for this unexpected second chance. Then, a wicked smile slowly spread across his face as he couldn't believe what was happening. And then, he remembered Ricardo had mentioned the orcs raid. Suddenly, Ghislain's eyes reflected a grave seriousness. He could never forget that day. The day when most of the raid squad were brutally slaughtered by orcs. In his past life, he had joined that very raid squad hoping to make a name for himself. The report at the time claimed there were only 3 orcs. He thought it would be an easy task, simple enough even for someone like him with no experience leading a squad. But when they arrived, they discovered more than 20 orcs waiting to devour them. Almost everyone was slaughtered, all because of his stubbornness and his reckless desire to lead. But now, things were different. These orcs lacked any real strategy and were easier to deal with. The real problem, however, was whether they would trust him, since in their eyes he was nothing more than a useless bastard. Suddenly, he heard something thrown overhead. It was one of their defensive fortresses, sent flying through the air before slamming into the ground right in front of him. 3 soldiers, their faces filled with shock and fear, shouted that the orcs had launched a surprise attack as we see the giant red orcs came charging straight at them. Ghislain was shocked, wondering if the orcs had arrived this quickly in his past life as well. The soldiers were no match for their overwhelming strength. With a single swing of its axe, an orc crushed 2 soldiers at once. The battle quickly devolved into a one-sided massacre. In the middle of the chaos, a sudden voice rang out above the screams. "Everybody, get into formation. There's no need to panic." It turned out to be Skovan, the raid squad commander. The orc swung its blade at Skovan, who narrowly avoided the strike. He muttered that they had let their guard down, admitting they weren't prepared for an ambush. There were far more enemies than the report claimed, and at this rate, he feared they were all going to die. Lost in his thoughts, he suddenly heard a shout. "Behind you!" A warning. An orc was coming in for a surprise attack. Then, someone placed a firm hand on Skovan's shoulder and pushed him away, just in time to avoid the attack. Skovan was left stunned, wondering why Ghislain would risk himself for him. But his thoughts were cut short as Ghislain drove his blade straight through the orc's hand, slicing its arm and leg in a single, swift motion. Everyone was in shock. Their eyes went wide, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Yet while the others were amazed, Ghislain felt only disappointment. He still couldn't use mana, and he wished he had returned to the past much earlier. After slaying the orc, Ghislain approached Scovan and asked if he was the commander. Scovan, still in shock, hesitated. Before he could reply, Ghislain extended his hand and demanded the commander's right.